Anchorage Police.
Face away from me.
Welcome back to The Civil Rights Lawyer, where we test the boundaries between law enforcement and civil liberties. And today we're looking at a heart-wrenching case from Anchorage, Alaska, where a teenager's life was tragically cut short. We're talking about the fatal shooting of 16-year-old Easter Lifa by an Anchorage police officer, an incident that sparked considerable outrage and debate there locally in Alaska about police use of force. On August 13th, 2024, Anchorage police responded to a 911 call involving Easter Lifa, who was reported to have threatened her sister with a knife.
We're going to try to talk to her and try to work through everything so we can safely get her detained.
The kids are in here and now they're crying because they're pointing guns.
Nobody's pointing any guns.
Are you just going to point that to her? I mean,
If she comes at us with a knife, yes.
She's not going to come with
We don't know that, and you don't know that,
We're trying
okay?
to do this as
What we're
safely as
trying to do is escalate the situation. De-escalate the situation.
What followed was a series of events that ended with Officer Alexander Roman discharging his weapon, leading to Easter's death. The state of Alaska's Department of Law, after reviewing the case, concluded that the officer's actions were legally justified. All the footage was released, and I'll link all of that below. After reviewing all that footage and after reading the entire report, I have some problems. Let's go through the footage and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Was this shooting justified or not? You be the jury here. Leave your verdict in a comment.
Your non-compliance could result in injury. I don't want to hurt you. We have lethal, we have less lethal options, we have taser, we have K9, we have 40 millimeter launcher, okay?
Before we dive in, you may have noticed my new glasses. As most of you already know, my eyes have taken a beating, but these custom blue light glasses actually have helped tremendously. So if you're like me and you spend way too much time looking at screens, you're going to want to hear from today's sponsor. If you didn't already know, GlassesUSA.com is one of the biggest eyewear retailers in the US, offering thousands of eyeglasses and sunglasses brands such as Ray-Ban, Gucci, Oakley, and many more, and also contact lenses. GlassesUSA.com also offers a collection of advanced blue light blocking lenses like these. Blue light glasses are ideal for protecting your eyes at home, work, or in the outdoors. Using blue light glasses during screen time helps reduce eye strain, decreases headaches, improves your sleep, and increases productivity. It was super easy shopping for my new glasses with GlassesUSA.com. They offer some amazing tools to help you find the perfect pair, and one of these tools is the AR Virtual Try-On. I had no idea this technology even existed. I ended up going with these Gucci frames on the advice of my wife, and I'm glad that I did because apparently now you can't find them anywhere. GlassesUSA.com is offering exclusive discounts only available for 24 hours. Just click on the links in the top of my description box to get all the details. Once again, thank you to GlassesUSA.com for sponsoring my eyes and also today's video.
On August 13th, 2024, at 23:32 hours, APD officers were dispatched to 4000 block of East 43rd Avenue in reference to a domestic violence disturbance involving a knife between two family members inside an apartment.
Let's look at this from a legal perspective from the very beginning. The justification of deadly force typically hinges on whether the officer reasonably believed that there was an imminent threat of serious bodily harm or death to themselves or others. Here, the presence of a knife, as reported in this 911 call, sets the stage for this legal issue.
911, what's location of the emergency?
I have my sister here, and she's acting up over some stupid shit.
How old is the sister?
She's holding a knife. She's only 16.
She's how old?
She's 16.
Okay, and what is she doing with the knife?
And she's trying to stop me.
Why?
Because I didn't do what she wanted me to do. Because she's mad, and
why is she mad?
I didn't do what she wanted me to do.
Okay, and where is she at right now?
She's outside the balcony.
She's outside?
Yeah.
Okay, does she still have the knife?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, who else is in the house with you?
All my siblings here, and including my mom as well.
Okay.
Two officers arrived in separate vehicles and began searching the scene. After being unable to find the subject, officers 1 and 2 went to contact the complainant in their second-floor apartment and learned the subject was on the balcony of that apartment.
Evening North Unit 71118 with a knife. The complaint says her 16-year-old sister's holding a knife and trying to stab her. 11 Alpha 1 and 12 Alpha 1 will have you divert in that direction. 12. Units around, our suspect's going to be a Samoan female wearing a black hoodie, black shorts. Complaint saying the suspect is now outside of the building and still has the knife in her possession. Looks like the suspect half for East 43rd has been outside at least 2 minutes. And our complainant stayed inside, so she no longer has a visual of where her sister's at outside.
Does your sister have access to vehicles?
We're still to find out. And the knife appears to be some type of kitchen knife used to cut vegetables. It's got a black handle on it and no access to vehicles.
Anchorage Police.
She's gone.
No, she's still outside. Like, she's
Where?
like,
You know where she's at?
Yeah, she's at the balcony.
Oh, she's on the balcony right now?
No, she's sitting outside the balcony.
She's going to be on the
On the other side?
No, she's...
west side of the building. She's on the ground level?
No.
Where's she at?
I feel like
On the balcony right here?
She's on the balcony out here.
Okay. Like she's in the apartment, so.
Yeah.
An important fact here is that this family was speaking Samoan for the most part, so there was a language barrier when the officers went inside. According to the police, none of them were able to speak Samoan. However, the family members that were communicating with the officers were able to speak English.
Can we get the kiddos out of here?
Yeah, you can.
Does she still have the knife with her?
No, she just...
Okay. Can you get up and leave too?
Just back that way, please.
For safety reasons, because I don't. If we have a confrontation, I don't want to deal with you and her.
All we have to
not gonna do anything.
That's
I don't know what she's going to do,
I don't
neither
know.
do you. Please
But
leave.
We're just asking you just to move further back. That's all. Okay? That's all we're asking.
Hey, we need some more in the apartment to help manage these folks. They're being a little bit 1032.
Oh my gosh.
So does she still have the knife with her? Do we know if she still has the knife with her?
I don't know. I was in the...
Okay. Do you know if she
No,
still has the knife with her?
vi llegó, le legal.
Do you know if she still has the knife with her? Can we turn off the TV?
Do you mind if I go that way?
No.
No, we don't want anyone.
I need you guys to go back into the rooms, please.
That way, 'cause we don't want to have any other confrontations with her, or if it gets escalated.
Hey, listen, we need some units in here to help with crowd control. We're trying to deal with the family before we confront the suspect.
To deal with something further, okay? So just step back for now, please.
Before we confront the suspect. They're refusing to go in their room. No, we just need some more units to help with crowd control.
Are you just gonna point that to her? I mean,
If
she's
she
not really-
comes at us with a knife, yes.
She's not gonna come with...
We don't know that, and you don't
Listen,
know
guys,
that,
we're trying to
okay?
do this as
What we're
safely as
trying to
possible.
do is escalate the situation. I mean, de-escalate the situation, which means we're trying to prevent her from doing anything
I don't
further.
think you guys coming in with those to her. She's...
Right now, we're trying to protect you and her,
This
okay?
has nothing to do with us. This is between her and her.
That's fine, but right now we need all of you to move back in case things get out of hand. We don't want that happening, but we need you to move back, please, to the other rooms. Can you please do that?
We want to do it in the safest way possible.
Right now we need all of you to move back in case things get out of hand. We don't want that happening, but we need you to move back, please, to the other rooms. Can you please do that?
We want to do it in the safest way possible.
She's not even that. She's never like
really
that.
not like
she's
that.
not like that.
Then, if that's the case,
But
then
you
we'll
guys
have an
told me
issue.
what that is.
Right now, we need to just.
That's really gonna cause some problem to her.
We're gonna try to talk to her and try to work through everything so
You
we can
really got
safely
them
get
coming
her
here with
detained.
guns. The kids are in here and now they're crying because they're pointing guns.
Nobody's pointed any guns.
Mo fo mo fa fa or le fa kwa fa ika
Oh my
ine.
gosh.
Le fa kwa kupu le fa fe.
I know it's a stressful situation for everyone, but if you guys can give us a little bit of space.
Oh my.
Does she still have? Can you turn the phone off, or if he needs to watch it to keep him calm, can he go into a room with you? And does she still have the knife with her?
This is honestly not the first time this has ever happened. It was always like this between them at home, back at home. But for her to call you guys because of this shit, this.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I'm sure you guys talked to the other officers. Right, but my concern right now is if she still has the knife with her.
Is it okay if I talk to her? Like crack the door?
Yeah, we can't let you get close because we got to make sure you're safe too. We can't let you get close to
Right now
her.
we're wasting a whole bunch of time.
We can't do
If you
that
guys could
until
just
you
go
go
in the
in
other
the
room, we could do our business safely.
And we can talk.
And we can talk to her, we can deal with her, and then we can talk to you guys. Right now you're throwing a whole bunch of wrenches in the mix that doesn't need to be.
Throwing a what?
You're throwing a wrench in the mix. You're making this harder for us because we're having to focus on your safety, our safety, and hers, instead of just our safety and hers.
I'm just trying to make sure that my sister's okay.
So are we. That's our goal here. Okay, can you please go into the other room so we can focus
Is
on
it
her?
okay if I just stand here?
I would prefer if you went into the other room. If you guys want to stand in the doorway, that means in the doorway where you are. Everybody needs to be behind you.
Once additional officers arrived on scene, the family was moved into a bedroom doorway, allowing officers 1 and 2 to contact the subject. Officer 1 opened a sliding glass door to the balcony, and the subject was observed sitting with a blanket over her head, covering her body. Officer 1 attempted verbal contact with the subject, ordering her to show her empty hands to demonstrate she was no longer armed. The subject did not respond to Officer 1's commands. During additional attempts at contact, Officer 1 conveyed to the subject that failure to comply with commands could result in harm and that several methods to gain compliance could be used. The subject still did not respond to Officer 1's commands. Eventually, the subject stood up and turned towards the officers with a knife in her right hand. She began to advance towards the officers and was commanded multiple times to drop the knife as Officer 1 and 2 moved backwards to create more distance. Ultimately, Officer 1 discharged his service weapon, while Officer 2 discharged a 40mm launcher at the subject.
So we can see that there was tension at the scene. Family members were concerned about the escalation of what was happening due to the presence of the armed police officers who are now in the apartment, and they're ready to potentially shoot the 16-year-old girl. Clearly. And the law usually sides with law enforcement so long as those officers can articulate why they believe there was some imminent threat. But here's where we must ask the critical questions. Was every effort made to de-escalate this situation? Could alternative methods, such as tasers or negotiation, have been employed? This family's pleas to the officers to de-escalate the situation, to calm things down, appears to have been completely sidelined, which raises concerns about the protocols that were followed due to what was clearly a mental health crisis or a disturbance involving a minor. Not only that, but where there's a language barrier.
Everybody needs to be behind you.
Okay, they're right here.
Just do what we need to. Well, this doesn't give us any standoff. Hey, go ahead and show me your hands. Show me open, empty hands. It's the Anchorage Police. If you do not comply, you could be injured. Open, empty hands. We are not going away.
Why don't we take a couple steps back?
We want to help you. Can we get her first name? What's her first name? What's that?
I need to see open, empty hands, please. Show them. I can't see them from behind you. Put them above your head, please. Please show me open, empty hands. Your non-compliance could result in injury. I don't want to hurt you. We have lethal, we have less lethal options, we have taser, we have K9, we have 40mm launcher, okay? Face away from me. Drop the knife!
If we slow the video down, this is the last frame before the firing begins. And slowing it down in that way, you can tell who fired first. That's important, and here's why. Officer number 1, who's closest to her, he has his pistol, his firearm, I believe it was a .40 caliber, aimed at her. He's closest. Behind him and a little bit to his right is another officer. Officer number 2 has a 40mm launcher. This is basically non-deadly force. This is meant to stop a threat, but not kill the individual. But he's behind the officer with the deadly force weapon. And again, he's just off to the right. So if we look at the very first frame where the firing begins, you can see that it was not Officer 1 who fired his firearm first. It was Officer number 2 who fired the 40mm first. We see that actually entering the body cam footage of Officer number 1 who was closest. We see the projectile flying through the air. We see the smoke. And only afterwards does Officer number 1 begin firing his actual deadly force firearm, and I believe he fires 4 rounds in quick succession. The other 2 officers in the room, their body cams are on. They fire no shots. That's important. I'll tell you why. This is the report from the State of Alaska Department of Law. I'll post this in its entirety at the blog post linked below. This is what it says, though. Given the facts and circumstances surrounding this incident, when evaluated under relevant Alaska law, this office will not be filing criminal charges against Officer Roman in this matter, who was the shooter. Officer Roman's use of deadly force against Lifa was legally justified under Alaska statutes as self-defense or defense of others. As Officer Roman's conduct was legally justified in this matter, criminal charges are not appropriate in this case. The most important factor in that analysis is whether or not there was some immediate threat of serious bodily injury or death to either the police officers or anyone else. The decision of the shooter to shoot must be reasonable in light of the totality of all of the circumstances. If you go through the Anchorage report, we do not see the direct interview of the 4 officers who were in the room. We have the investigators' conclusions of what the officers allegedly told the investigators. And if you read it, you can see that this is clearly the government is assisting these officers in saying what they need to say to be able to shut the case, to close the case as this being justified. Now, what the shooter says and what the officer who shot the 40mm launcher says, I mean, that's sort of predictable. But like I said, let's look at the other 2 officers who are in the back of the room, because we have their body cams as well. But before we look at that, we have some of the things that those officers allegedly said during their interviews. Now, I don't know which officer is which. They identify the officers by numbers, but in the report, they identify them by name. One of the officers in the rear who did not fire was Officer Kyle Pasta. According to the report, Officer Pasta indicated that Miss Lifa was probably 8 feet or maybe closer to the officers. Officer Pasta said there was nothing between her and the officers except the open door. Officer Pasta indicated that he started to get his taser out of his holster. He said he thought he might be able to deploy his taser if Officer Furson's 40mm was not effective. Kyle Pasta also said that Easter Lifa was within 5 feet of Officers Roman and Furson and holding the knife when he heard 3 to 5 shots. Officer Pasta said he began to get his pistol ready because he believed Easter Lifa could have stumbled and injured the nearby officers with a knife. He noted that with 2 or 3 quote, lunge steps, Easter Lifa would have been able to seriously injure either officer. The other officer in the back was Jose Maldonado. Now, according to this report, Officer Maldonado said that he saw them back up a couple of steps, which was as far as they could in the space. Officer Maldonado indicated that he saw Miss Leafa look in the direction of Officer Roman and Officer Furson while holding the knife in her right hand. Officer Maldonado stated that the blade of the knife was pointed towards the officers. Officer Maldonado said Easter Leafa took a step towards the officers. Officer Maldonado said when he saw Easter Leafa walking towards the officers with a knife, his immediate concern was that the officers were within 4 feet of Easter Leafa. Officer Maldonado said he knows how little time it can take for someone with a knife to close that length of distance. So in this report, in these interviews, these officers are giving very specific information that is either coming from the lawyers or from the department itself. I mean, they're giving specific numbers about how close Easter Leafa was and reasons why the shooters or the shooter, Officer Roman, could not back up any further. They're saying the right things to make it look like in writing there was this immediate threat and that Officer Roman had no choice. He had no choice. It's unfortunate, it's tragic, but he had no choice. But when we actually look at the body cam from the officers in the rear, does it show something a little different than what this report says in black and white?
I need to see open, empty hands, please. Show them. I can't see them from behind you. Put them above your head, please.
Now, I'm not sure if that's Officer Pasta or Maldonado, but clearly this guy does not sense some sort of immediate deadly force style safety threat. It almost looks like he has his hands in his pocket. He's turning his back to this threat. He's walking back and forth. He looks fairly disinterested. In fact, when you look at it in slow motion, he only shows interest once his colleagues start shooting. He did not even have his pistol out, despite the knowledge that this knife was, as far as they knew, still in her possession, and that it was a big, scary knife. And also, look how much space there is behind the officers that said they had no choice. There was no way that they could back up. They were basically cornered. I mean, he's pacing around. There's so much room. And as soon as his buddies start shooting, I mean, he literally moves way out of the way. They had plenty of room to back up.
Please show me open, empty hands. Your non-compliance could result in injury. I don't want to hurt you. We have lethal, we have less lethal options, we have taser, we have K9, we have 40mm launcher. Okay? Face away from me.
Did you see how quickly he was able to react and say, uh-oh, maybe there is a problem here. I need to be on my guard. I need to pull my pistol out. And also just like, you know, like we used to do in football, that was like a karaoke or whatever they call it, like sideways across the room. There was plenty of room there. The fact is that the officer in the front, which he shouldn't have been in the front, if they have this 40mm non-deadly weapon, why wasn't that guy in the front? And in fact, he fired first. What's the point of having the 40mm launcher if you're going to start firing the actual 40 caliber deadly bullets soon as the guy with the non-deadly launcher fires? I mean, it makes no sense. They escalated this situation completely unnecessarily. They didn't need to close the distance with this woman with the knife when they could have given it more distance. She never started running at them. She was walking. There was a language barrier. There was no threatening gesture with the knife that you can see on the video. She was merely in possession of the knife. And we just went over this in another Anchorage police case a few videos ago, and I discussed the recent Ninth Circuit opinion in Kalonji versus City of San Jose. I will repost that at the blog post link below, but basically it says this: cops can't just shoot a guy for mere possession of a gun. Just because he has a gun, they can't say drop the gun and then shoot him. And arguably it's the same thing with a knife, or even more so. They can't just shoot somebody because they're in possession of a knife. There has to be more. Did she make any threatening gesture with the knife? Well, she didn't obey their orders, but they also knew that there was a language barrier. They also knew that this was a 16-year-old child who was in distress. We don't know if there was a choice. They fired too quickly here. They could have given her some more space. They could have tried just the 40mm launcher instead of putting a 40 caliber bullet into her heart. They're the ones who are supposed to be protecting and serving. Why not protect the 16-year-old who clearly is in distress? There were 4 police officers in the room. Out of the 4, 2 of them did not have their guns out because they clearly did not sense that she was any imminent threat to them. That was just later in writing. Their behaviors that we see on video show our eyes something completely different. The officer in the front, Romano, who should not have been there, he fired unnecessarily. He was too close. He was basically putting himself in the path of danger unnecessarily. That did not have to be done. And you know what? They know that. That's why they got every officer in the room to make these comments like, oh, she was 4 feet away and she was closing the distance. I was worried that even she would trip and stab them to death with a knife. She never made a threatening gesture with a knife. She never even raised the knife before being shot to death. While clearly police officers can shoot somebody with a knife who is walking towards them with a knife and refusing orders to drop the knife, that doesn't mean that we don't look at the particular circumstances to see if it was reasonable in the way that they did it. Under these circumstances, they had plenty of room to back up some. Nobody was in any immediate danger yet. It was close and it was getting there. Everyone in that room knows that that officer in front acted too quickly. And I would argue that that action was unreasonable. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that that officer acted reasonably in shooting the 16-year-old? What would your verdict be? And if you like going through these types of cases, please subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.